Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we have a very special video as it is the return of the death battle videos or style of videos that I've made a little while back. I made 3 of them in the past, and today the death battle is going to be Ashley Johnson's characters. So Pike, Yasha, and Fern. I'm super excited to get in this one, so let's do it. So for those of you who don't know how this works, I'm going to break down each character's sort of strengths, their abilities, their classes, their HP, their movement speed, and then we're going to do 2 different fights. There is a number crunch fight where we take their most basic attack and do the average damage and see how long it takes for them to eliminate the other 2 characters, and the person who lasts the longest wins the theoretical fight, or the number crunch fight. But then we go into a practical fight where 3 of my players from our D&D games at home take up the roles of Pike, Yasha, and Fern, and they fight it out playing as those characters, and the winner of that is obviously the winner of the fight. Before I start breaking down each character, I do want to point out one thing. We have already done videos, or these death battle style videos, with each of these classes in the past. Pike is a cleric, Yasha is a barbarian, and Fern is a druid. So we already have videos in the past that I've done where we've broken down the initial classes of that. So like most of their shared abilities between classes have already been broken down. So I won't be breaking down those today. I will only be doing subclass stuff for them today. If you want to see what other abilities they have, I will be putting them on the screen, but I won't be describing them. It'll be a little bit faster for me to do this way, and it'll save me on editing time. So it's very nice for me. But we've already done them in the past, so if you want to see that, there will be a link, or somewhere there will be a playlist of my previous death battles where you can see further in-depth breakdowns of each of the classes. But for today, we're only going to be doing these subclass breakdowns and occasionally a feat or something else they might have. So we are starting with Pike. Pike has 73 HP, 20 AC, and 25 speed. Pike's chance of hitting, she has a +5 with all of her weapons, so she has a 40% chance to hit both Yasha and Fern as they have the same AC. We could also use Sacred Flame as her basic attack, as it is unending of a resource because it is a cantrip. Her spell save DC is 16, meaning Yasha has a 35% chance to make it, and Fern has a 30% chance to save. We can also give Pike her spiritual weapon, as it is in her spell list, and it's a bonus action to cast. So I feel like it's fair to add to this fight. So, spiritual weapon has a +8, meaning she has a 55% chance to hit both Fern and Yasha with it. And now we are moving on to Pike's abilities. Now this is the screen where we will display the shared cleric abilities that I've already gone over in the past. So if you don't want to go back and watch my previous videos, you can pause the screen here, you can look up each of these individually, and you will find out and learn what they do. So yeah, moving on to her cleric domain. Pike is a war cleric domain, thus she gets the war domain spells, and she gets a bonus proficiency. At first level, she gains proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. She also gets the War Priest ability. From first level, your god delivers bolts of inspiration to you while you are engaged in battle. When you use the attack action, you can make one weapon attack as a bonus action. You can do this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, a minimum of once. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. At second level, Pike gets her first Channel Divinity, and it is Guided Strike. At second level, you can use your Channel Divinity to strike with supernatural accuracy. When you make an attack roll, you can use your Channel Divinity to gain +10 bonus to that roll. You can make this choice after you see your roll, but before the DM says whether your attack hits or misses. And at level 6, she gets her second Channel Divinity, War God's Blessing. At 6th level, when a creature within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll, you can use your reaction to grant that creature a +10 bonus to the attack roll, using your Channel Divinity. You can make this choice after you see the roll, but before the DM says whether or not the first attack hits or misses. And finally, at level 8, Pike gets Divine Strike. You gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause the attack to deal an extra D8 damage of the same type default by the weapon to the target. We're now moving on to Yasha. Yasha has 112 HP, 17 AC, and a speed of 40. Her chance of hitting, she has a +8 with both of her weapons, so she has a 40% chance to hit Pike and a 55% chance to hit Fern. We are now moving on to Yasha's abilities, and much like before, this screen will display the shared barbarian abilities between the previous barbarians that we've talked about before. We've talked about 2, Grog, and Ashton, so I've talked about it plenty. So you can hit pause on this screen, look up anything you don't know, and then move on from here, or you can go watch those videos like I mentioned before. Before we move on to Yasha's class abilities, I want to talk about her most important feat, Sentinel. You have mastered techniques to take advantage of every drop in your enemy's guard, gaining these following benefits. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the creature's speed becomes 0 for the rest of the turn. Creatures provoke opportunity attacks from you even if they take the disengage action before leaving your reach. And finally, when a creature within 5 feet of you makes an attack against a target other than you and that doesn't have this feat, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against the attacking creature. Yasha is a Path of the Zealot Barbarian. She has Divine Fury. Starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, you can channel your Divine Fury into your weapon strikes. While you're raging, the first creature you hit on each of your turns with a weapon attack takes extra damage equal to 1d6 plus half your Barbarian level. The extra damage is either necrotic or radiant. You choose the damage type when you gain this feature. At 3rd level, she gains the feature Warrior of the Gods. Your soul is marked for endless battle. If a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life but not on death, the caster does not need material components to cast the spell on you. Fanatical Focus, starting at 6th level, the divine power that fuels your rage can protect you. If you fail a saving throw while raging, you can re-roll it and you must use the new roll. You can use this ability only once per rage. Zealous Presence, at 10th level you learn to channel your divine power to inspire zealotry in others. As a bonus action, you unleash a battle cry infused with divine energy. Up to 10 creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you that can hear you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. And now we are moving on to Fern. Fern has 71 HP, she has 17 AC, and she has a speed of 30. Fern's chance of hitting, she has a +9 with her Thorn Whip, and Mr. gets a +9 to Flaming Seed as well. Now, I do feel the need to explain why Fern is using the things she's using here, including Mr. First of all, we can just presume Mr. is out with her. If she's, say, walking around in the middle of a town, just out by herself, and she runs into Yasha and Pike and they just start fighting, I would imagine Fern just has Mr. out 24/7 when she's by herself. So personally, Mr. being out is not a big deal. Plus, it adds a second attack to her turn, much like Pike and Yasha both have. They both have 2 attacks, so this equals things out really nicely to have both a cantrip being used and Mr. being used. Now, why am I using Thorn Whip instead of something like Produce Flame? Well, Produce Flame takes 2 turns to actually damage anything. And it would just be unfair for her to have 1.5 average attacks as opposed to having her just having 2. So I feel like Thorn Whip is the better option for this moment. She does also have melee attacks, but they fucking suck. She has a +2, I think +3 at the best with her melee attacks. So realistically, better off just using her spell attack, which is a +9. So that's what Thorn Whip is here for. And we're now moving on to Fern's abilities. And thankfully, I've already covered Druid abilities because Fern has a fucking lengthy read here. So thankfully I've already covered a druid in the past, which was Keyleth, and that was in the Keyleth versus Beauregard versus Laudna video. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. You'll get a bigger understanding of what the druid abilities are, and if not, you can press pause and just look up what they are here. So Fern is a Circle of the Wildfire druid. That means she gets Wildfire Circle magic, of which you will be seeing the list right on the screen now. At level 2, she gains Summon Wildfire Spirit. You can summon the Primal Spirit bound to your soul. As an action, you can expend one of your wild-shaped features to summon your Wildfire Spirit, rather than assuming a beast form. The spirit appears in an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. Each creature within 10 feet of the spirit, other than you, when it appears, must succeed a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, or take 2d6 fire damage. The spirit is friendly to you and your companions and obeys your commands. There is a stat block for this thing that uses your proficiency bonus, so it should be on screen right now. This is my reminder to do so, because I am forgetful. You determine the spirit's appearance. Some spirits take the form of a humanoid figure made of gnarled branches, covered in flames, while others look like beasts wreathed with fire, much like Mr. In combat, the spirit shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. The only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. The action can be one in its stat block, much like you're seeing on screen. If you are incapacitated, the spirit can take any action of its choice, not just dodge, which is pretty good. The spirit manifests for 1 hour until its hit points are reduced to 0, or until you use your feature to summon the spirit again, or until you die. There's a lot of ors in this. At 6th level, Fern gets Enhanced Bond. The bond with your Wildfire Spirit enhances your destructive and restorative spells. Whenever you cast a spell that deals fire damage or restores hit points while your Wildfire Spirit is summoned, roll a d8. You gain a bonus equal to the number rolled to 1 damage or 1 healing roll of that spell. In addition, when you cast a spell with a range of other than self, The spell can originate from you or the Wildfire Spirit. At 10th level, she gets Cauterizing Flames. You gain the ability to turn death into magical flames that can heal or incinerate. When a small or larger creature dies within 30 feet of you or your Wildfire Spirit, a harmless spectral flame springs forth in the dead creature's space and flickers there for 1 minute. When a creature you can see enters that space, you can use your reaction to extinguish the spectral flame there and either heal the creature or deal fire damage to it. The healing or damage equals 2d10 plus your wisdom modifier. You can use this reaction a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So we are now moving on to the theoretical fight, which is the number crunch fight, where we go over the average damage each of the players can do per turn, assuming they hit both times. And whoever lasts the longest or takes the others out first is the winner. So we're starting with Pike, and Pike is in an interesting spot. You see, she has the War Priest ability, which allows her to hit twice per turn. But that only works for 4 turns, as that is her wisdom modifier. So we have to do something a little different for her to be at 2 attacks. So using her best weapon, which is the Mace of Disruption, she gets a 7 damage average per turn, or we could use Sacred Flame, which is an average of 8 per turn. But we could add Spiritual Weapon to this because, that is a bonus action to cast, and we can cast it at its lowest level in all fairness, so it adds an average of 8 damage each turn to, we're going to use Sacred Flame, which would make it much more effective because it's 8 plus 8 damage instead. So with Sacred Flame and Spiritual Weapon, it'll take 7 turns for Pike to take out Yasha, as she resists neither damage type from these abilities. And it'll take 5 turns with Sacred Flame and Spiritual Weapon for Pike to take out Fern. So moving on to Yasha, with either of her weapons, she does an average of 13 damage with 1 hit and can hit twice per turn, so she can deal an average of 26 damage per turn. It'll take 3 turns for Yasha to take out both Pike and Fern. And finally, moving on to Fern. Fern deals 3 damage on average per turn with Thorn Whip, and Mr. deals 7 damage. So if you add them both together, they deal 10 damage per turn. It'll take Fern 14 turns to take out Yasha, as Mr.'s fire damage isn't halved by her rage, and it'll take 8 turns to take out Pike, which is respectable. With that, I think the results are very, very clear. Yasha is the winner. She takes out the others in way faster of a time than it would take for the others to take her out. So she is the winner by default, obviously. But this is usually the case for barbarians. They are much better in these sort of number crunch fights where magic isn't being used. That is why we have another fight that we're going to get to, which is the practical fight. My prediction for the practical fight is going to be Yasha. Not only is she faster than the other two, so closing the gap in this will be a lot easier, and she hits like a fucking brick shithouse. She hits super hard, as you saw here. It took no time for her to take them out in the practical fight, as long as she doesn't miss. But she also has Sentinel, which is a nasty, nasty, nasty thing to have against people who need to create range. So if she's able to close that distance and then make sure that they can't run away, at least one of them will die super quick to her hands, and then she'll have to catch up to the other. But I feel like that will be easy enough for Yasha to do. So with that, it is time to roll initiative. So before getting into the actual fight itself, there's a few things I want to cover before getting into it. But first, normally we have a blank slate map where they are spread out 30 feet away from each other. But due to how the last one went, where the two of them just kept rolling around each other over and over again, I elected to shorten the range of the battlefield, so it's much smaller now, which is why there's like a mild barrier surrounding them. And there is now like foliage and houses in the way, which I thought would make it for a much more interesting encounter. And another thing that happened since the last time I did one of these, I ended up getting all of the minis for all 3 parties. So I now have Vox Machina, I now have the Mighty Nine, and I now have the Bell's Hells in mini form, which I think is just going to add another layer to these videos. So I hope you guys enjoy. That is a really cool thing for me to have. I love owning them. They're really cool. They look really dope. None of them look horrible. Like, they all came out really well. So I'm very happy with how they look. And yeah, I'm just excited to have these now, and it'll add to these fights. So now it's time to truly roll initiative. Initiative rolls go like this. Fern with a 16 is first, Pike is second with a 15, and Yasha is last with a 14. Round 1, Fern summons Mister on top of Yasha, and Yasha fails the dex save, and she takes 5 damage. Fern then runs behind a building, and then she tells Mister to use fiery teleportation to teleport 15 feet back away from Yasha. Yasha fails the DC again, and she takes 7 more fire damage. Pike is up. She cast 4th level spiritual weapon right next to Yasha. The spiritual weapon hit Yasha for 12 damage. Pike then moves up and attacks Yasha using Guided Strike to hit, dealing 16 damage. Yasha is up and she chooses to use Skin Gorger as it deals extra damage. Yasha recklessly attacks Pike, missing both attacks, but just barely missing, like literally just below Pike's AC. Round 2, and we're going to do an HP checkup. Fern still sitting with 71, Pike still sitting with 73, and Yasha is joining them in the 70s with 72 HP. Fern moves up to see everyone from around the building she's hiding in. She casts Flame Strike on Yasha and Pike, and they both fail. Pike takes 32 damage, and Yasha takes 24 damage, as Yasha resists radiant damage. I do want to point out that means she resists Sacred Flame from earlier in the theoretical fight, but that only just means she lasts longer, because the theoretical fight she won anyway. Mister then uses Flaming Seed on Yasha and hits for 7 more damage. Yasha cannot catch a break. She's getting beaten here. Pike is up. She uses Spiritual Weapon to attack at advantage due to Reckless Attack from Yasha last time, and it hits, dealing 6 damage, and then Pike attacks and hits again at Yasha for 14 damage. Yasha rages, and she attacks Pike, recklessly attacking, hitting for 22 damage, and then hitting the second one for 15 more damage. Round 3, we're going to do an HP checkup again. Fern still untouched at 71 as the others are distracted with each other, and Fern got far enough away where it would be a pain in the ass for the others to get to. Pike has 4 HP left, and Yasha has 21 HP left. Fern is up, and she casts Scorching Ray at 4th level, meaning there is 5 rays of fire. She throws 1 at Pike and 4 on Yasha, hitting Pike, killing her, and then hitting all 4 on Yasha, killing her as well. The fight is over, and the surprising winner is Fern. So there you have it. The surprising winner, in my opinion anyway, is Fern. I firmly believed that she would lose this. She would be the first one out. I figured she would get targeted by the other two, but because she was able to create the space, because she went first, it forced the other two to fight each other, which was much more interesting for me to see. I expected the gap to be closed on Fern instantly, and then her to get taken down and taken out, and then for Pike and Yasha to have a sort of one-on-one fight. But that didn't happen. The more interesting thing happened, which was, again, space was created, and with Mister's help, the fire damage just accumulated, and it was able to hurt both of them significantly, as Yasha doesn't resist fire damage, which is a huge boon to Fern in this fight, that neither person is able to have her damage, which is really cool. And unfortunately, Pike didn't get to heal herself at all. There wasn't really many options for her. She would have just instantly lost that health if she healed anyway. So realistically, this fight went about as well as it could have for Fern, and as terribly as it could for the other two, because they didn't have the options that they should have had, because they went second and third, or second and last. And I firmly do believe if Yasha were to go first, she might have a better chance. But after seeing this, Fern might just be a monster in disguise, and she just does a ton of damage. Now, before I do wrap this up, there is one more thing I want to make very clear. Unlike previous death battles, where the players that I had playing for me had a ton of time to look over each of their character sheets, I didn't give them a whole lot of time for them to do it this time around. The reason was because I just don't feel like Ashley does that. I don't feel like Ashley looks over her character sheet like in and out to try to learn it, much like most of the cast. But I feel like she's the most inexperienced because of her time away, so it just felt like it made more sense for them not to have as much time looking it over. So they didn't play it as if they were experts with the class. They played it as if they were handed a character sheet and they are good at playing D&D, which they all are, and then they went from there. And I very much think that that made the best sort of situation happen and the most authentic to Ashley Johnson. So hopefully this fight felt right in how it went down, because I firmly think it did. I firmly think this is how it would go based on how Ashley would play and depending on how the roles turn out. Again, I do think if Yasha went first, things would be different, but it didn't happen here. So my prediction was wrong yet again. I think I've only predicted one correctly so far, which was Ford. So I'm getting bad at these. I'm getting bad at predicting. I've gotten worse as time's gone on. But with that all being said, that is the video. The next one has already been chosen. which is going to be Liam O'Brien Death Battle. So we have Vax, Caleb, and Orem, and I'm very excited for that one to happen. But that won't happen for a little while down the future, or down the line, whenever, whatever wording you want to use. So that one will be a little while away. So until then, and until Tuesday, when I make whatever video I want to make next, peace.